Nice. Come on, punch him. Yeah. Yeah.
Mike Tyson's recent training footage has sent boxing legends into a cold sweat, and they're terrified for Jake Paul. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul has been making a lot of buzz in the fight world, but if you ask me, this fight is nothing but a huge mistake. Jake has no clue what he's getting himself into because even at the age of 57, Iron Mike is getting ready to do some serious damage in the ring. Boxing legends are sharing their 2 cents on the upcoming bout, and they're sending Paul brutal warnings. I don't know about you, but this isn't coming as a surprise to me. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul? I believe it's pretty obvious who's going to be the bigger man in this matchup. Take the word from Tyron Woodley, who knows that Paul doesn't stand a chance against Mike in the ring.
Mike Tyson right now, off muscle memory alone, he can have a flashback, right? He can step on the wrong eggshell and let off a combination that can kill most people. He has the power and ability to shift organs in your body if he hits you with the right force.
As someone who's stepped into the ring with Paul before, Tyron knows what he's talking about, and I'm not taking his words with grains of salt. Mike Tyson was programmed to be the baddest man in the world, and he can send current world heavyweight champions crashing onto the canvas, so frankly speaking, a YouTuber turned boxer has nothing on him. Think about it. This man has probably forgotten more boxing techniques than Jake Paul has ever learned. Mike was dominating the boxing game, knocking out one opponent after another when Jake wasn't even born. You do the math. Even former world heavyweight champion Tyson Fury believes that fight is a big mismatch.
Oh, okay, the guy's 57 years old, but he's former undisputed world heavyweight king, and one guy plays computers for a living, and he's come to boxing about a year ago, so...
Yeah, if you failed to understand, Tyson was being sarcastic. Simon, this fight is set to be the biggest fight of the year, but what are fans paying to see? A 57-year-old boxing legend stepping into the ring with a young boxer who had his rise to fame in the sport only a year ago, and that too mostly by being controversial online. At this point, you'd expect Paul to have a death wish. His record is 9-1, but even that isn't impressive when he's only fought old and retired MMA stars or NBA players. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, is it smart to bet against the 27-year-old when he's up to fight someone who's pushing 60? Well, yes it is when that old guy is none other than Mike Tyson. Even Joe Rogan shares the same views as me on this one.
See him hit those pads?
Absolutely.
He has not lost everything.
But he's lost some, but coming from the best,
Yeah.
he's now like maybe just normal, right?
He's still not normal, but he's still like a professional heavyweight boxer. He's still terrifying.
I'm sure you've seen Tyson's recent training footage, and if there's one thing to take from it, it's that he's still a beast. Don't let his age fool you at all, because this guy is still in shape, quick with his feet, sharp with his hands, and that strong left hook is still his greatest weapon. Plus, he's still got that champion's mindset. He's ready to put Paul through hell, and he's putting in the work for it. Despite his age, Mike is taking his training seriously, and not only this, but he's also eating raw meat to prepare for the bout.
58 years old, dude. You look like 20 years old. What the hell? What are you eating?
Raw meat.
Seriously, Mike. You're eating raw meat? Are you swallowing it, or remember you used to spit that stuff out?
I'm gonna have to eat it now because my opponent's gonna be raw meat.
That's right.
Mike Tyson and Jake Paul had been in talks for a fight for quite some time now, as the former Disney star was trying to get him to negotiate since the past year. Mike was always quick to shut him down. But after taking enough of Paul's verbal jabs, he finally decided to settle the score in the ring. One thing about Mike is that he isn't a big fan of influencer boxing, and I agree with the man. YouTuber turned boxers stepping into rings and getting more attention than world champions don't sit right with any true boxing fan. If you think about it, it's taking away from the true beauty of the sport. Jake Paul vs. Tommy Fury was one of the biggest PPV events of 2023. And let me remind you, this was the same year Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford put up one of the best fights ever for boxing fans. Mike believes that there's no room for overnight influencer boxers who are fighting just to cash big paychecks, and he's ready to put an end to it once and for all by knocking out Jake Paul. Anyone who's a true old-school boxing fan like me knows that there's no room for Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul in real boxing, especially when whether Jake Paul is a legitimate boxer is still a topic of debate. Boxing is taking a humiliating turn with the addition of influencer boxers in pro matches, and I'm ready to have that conversation. Jake Paul's confidence for this upcoming fight isn't looking too good for him, and fans want to remind him that Mike isn't anything like the other opponents he has faced. The jump in the skill level is definitely something Paul needs to prepare for. Pros are terrified that Paul's going to be all talk and no show.
I would win. Serious as a heart attack. I think he thinks that he would knock me out, and I think that is maybe the reason why he doesn't want to do the fight, because I think he wants to avoid maybe knocking me out.
He doesn't realize how good you are.
Exactly.
If he knew, maybe he would.
Maybe the fight would happen.
You think you can knock him out?
Can I ask you a question?
I think there's a very,
Whoa,
very high chance of that. He's not the same fighter that he once was, and he knows that.
Take it from me, it's a big thing for a kid like Jake to say that he'd knock out Mike Tyson 100%. Confidence is key to good sportsmanship. But there's a thin line between confidence and overconfidence, and Jake seems to be crossing this one. At least give the man some credit. He's Mike freaking Tyson after all. Boxing fans are concerned for Jake, and they believe he isn't taking this one as seriously, and that might prove to be a big mistake for him. Now, Jake really is in some deep waters, because when he loses this fight, then Mike will get to prove his point, which is that there's no room for Paul in the boxing world if he can't prove himself against pro boxers. He lost to the first pro boxer he faced, and that wasn't even some big name. It was Tommy Fury, who doesn't rank much higher than Paul on my charts. When asked by his brother Logan Paul if he was scared of Mike's training, Jake admitted to being under pressure before delivering a defiant message to his future foe.
Yeah. It's motivating, I think. And I think it's good to carry fear into the ring and with you on a daily basis when you're training, because it makes you better. But Mike, looking good on the mitts is not even half the battle. You have to face me in the ring. I think he might be like seeing these videos of how good he looks hitting the mitts and like getting like turned up, and his confidence is probably growing.
If I was Jake Paul, I wouldn't be using words as big, because if anything, he's just poking the bear. Mike Tyson is the kind of boxer who has had knockout with every possible punch a fighter can throw. From hooks to jabs, he can make any punch knockout worthy, and that's something you can't say about a lot of fighters. Usually a fighter masters one technique and gets most of his knockouts mastering it, but Mike knows it all. He's leaving no stone unturned in preparing for this fight. The guy knows he can take Jake down without putting in the work, but like the true sportsman that he is, Iron Mike is giving this fight his all. After all, he's returning to the ring after 4 years. The boxing legend last fought Roy Jones Jr. in an 8-round exhibition fight in November 2020, and we all thought that was the last we'd ever see him in the ring. Well, life has its many ways of being unexpected, because never in my wildest dreams would I've imagined Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul would ever see the light of day. Mike Tyson recently told Fox News that his return to the ring was just as unexpected to him as to the fans, and he hates to admit it, but he's scared. No, don't you even think he's scared of Paul, because that is ridiculous. He's just overwhelmed with the idea of stepping into the ring again. I'm sure he didn't envision fighting influencer boxers at the age of 57, so this is new for him too. I have a weird personality. I don't think it's weird though. Whatever I'm afraid to do, I do it. That's how it is. I was afraid of the Roy Jones fight. I was 100 pounds overweight. I was, however, old, 54, 53, and I said, let's do it. Anything I'm afraid of, I confront it. That's my personality. Right now, I'm scared to death. I always believed that adversity and nervousness pretty much catapulted me into success. Tyson hung up his gloves in 2005 after retiring on his stool in the 6th round against journeyman boxer Kevin McBride, but this new era of exhibition boxing has forced him to make a comeback. As the fight gets closer, the less nervous I become, because it's reality, and in reality, I'm invincible. Now, as much as I want Tyson to stay in retirement and stay out of the ring for good, this might be the start of his exhibition boxing era. This man has proved that Father Time has nothing on him, because he's looking more ripped than ever, pushing 60. It's not a stretch to think he might become the next Floyd Mayweather of exhibition fights, but that wouldn't be too Mike Tyson of him. If you ask me, I believe Mike should call it quits for real after settling his score with Paul. Exhibition boxing isn't for boxing legends, and not everyone is screwed in the head enough to step into the ring with Mike. I think it's just a Jake Paul thing. Take it from Andrew Tate, who believes that there's no amount of money on the planet he can be offered to fight Mike Tyson.
Would you fight Mike Tyson? There's no amount of money on the planet that could convince me to fight Mike Tyson. Prime Tyson would have ripped me apart in a boxing match. I'm not boxing. Perhaps if I was a boxer and I was heavier, maybe I can make a bunch of stories. The truth is I'm a kickboxer and it's his rule set, and he was Mike Tyson. He would have beaten me, so to beat him when he's past his prime just feels dishonorable, and I'd feel dirty for doing that.
Andrew also believes that it's dirty for Jake to fight a man past his prime. He believes that it's dishonorable for Jake to fight a man who's 57, and I can't help but agree. Mike's the role model most champions we look at now grew up with. Tyson Fury is even named after the guy, so for Jake to even step into the same ring as him, yeah, it doesn't sit right with me. But make sure to share your opinions on the match in the comments. Do you believe Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul is a fair fight? I guess we'll have to see how this one plays out.